The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Well, if you couldn't tell by the shirt that I got on, we're approaching Talladega weekend here in the state of Alabama, where our podcast originates from. I'm Steve West. This is Matt Nicholson. We got plenty to get to, and we will give a full preview of the racing here at Talladega coming up a little bit later on in this podcast. But first, we actually want to deal with a little bit of news out of the fine folks over at Formula One. Formula One's a weird situation.
You think?
Yeah. Good grief.
You think?
Why did we ever start covering F1? Oh, that's right. Somebody asked us to. This team right here, BWT Alpine, or Alpine as they call themselves, they are a division of the car company called Renault. And if you're not familiar with Renault, we understand that. They don't sell their cars here in the United States of America. They are a very European-based company.
Yep.
Alpine is their performance division, which is why they decided to rename the Renault team Alpine. Seemed to make sense. Okay. They run a Renault engine this year and next year. And then that's it. This is a major car company who owns their own Formula One team, what they call a works team in F1 parlance. Have their own engine department and have decided that with the new engine regulations that are coming up in 2026, we don't want to build engines anymore, so we're going to go outsource it. And they're talking to Mercedes. What?
Yeah.
Okay, something of a cost-cutting measure. I get it. There's about 100 people that work in the Formula One engine department, so it's a minor cost-cutting move on their part. How much is that really saving you? It's not that much.
No, because the new engine person, the new engine company that you sign is probably going to rip you for as much, if not more.
Wouldn't surprise me one single solitary bit. So,
Good
luck, Alpine.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. I hope it works out for you. I don't think it will.
No.
But you never know.
Probably not.
The picture that we're about to show you next, you probably remember because we made such a big deal out of it when it came to him doing the double. We're talking, of course, about Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson got into a little bit of open wheel competition. Not his first bit of open wheel competition, obviously. He's quite familiar with modifieds and sprints and so on and so forth. But then he got himself into the Indy 500, and he was actually acquitting himself very nicely until kind of they screwed up on the gas strategy there towards the end of it.
Yep.
Well, here's the thing. This Indycar right here, he's about to step it up a notch. Kyle Larson's gotten the opportunity to do a test with the team that helped him field that Indycar ride, Arrow McLaren.
To which I am not surprised.
Not at all. Kyle Larson's going to get a chance to do an actual F1 test. Now, number one, very cool thing. We've seen this before. Jeff Gordon probably did it first. He did a swap with Juan Pablo Montoya, if I remember correctly.
Montoya and Gordon did it in Indianapolis.
And then
Stewart and Hamilton did it at Watkins Glen, of all places.
Yeah. And all four of those drivers acquitted themselves very, very well. I mean, Gordon and Montoya, this was before Montoya got into NASCAR. They were within a half a second of each other at Indianapolis. And then at Watkins Glen, Stewart brings his NASCAR number 14 Stewart Haas racing car, and here comes Lewis Hamilton. At that point in time, he was still running for McLaren, if I remember correctly. And those two guys got to within like a quarter second of each other at one point.
In the rain.
In the rain. Not
in the rain, yeah.
Shabby. This isn't actually going to be a swap, though, from what I can tell. Oh, is it? Tell me more, because the last I heard, this was just him testing.
While I was trying to wind down and go to sleep last night because, the injuries I'm dealing with and everything, the medications I'm having to take is, it just will jack you up. Let's just say that. I've been very sleep deprived for a couple of weeks. So if you see me winding up for later, I am winding up for later. The last I read last night, they are targeting of doing a ride swap. And it would be himself and Oscar Piastri.
Ooh. That's an interesting choice because Oscar Piastri is kind of the big golden child for the McLaren F1 team, and this is no disrespect to
Piastri has expressed an interest in NASCAR, and his eyes are opened up to it. So they're looking to do and targeting a ride swap between Larson and Piastri. The location is apparently still to be determined if they're going to do it at the end of the season test in Bahrain or in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, because it's going to probably have to be sometime. There's really no downtime now anymore in NASCAR until the end of the season.
Or if they will do a ride swap at COTA. I would say bring an F1 car to a ride swap at Talladega.
Either way,
which is wishful thinking.
Do this like they did the Lewis Hamilton, Tony Stewart one and televise this. I want to see it. I want to see it. And for all of those people who, by the way, I've seen this on social media, you probably have too, and these are the keyboard warriors who are brave enough to go ahead and put it out there, but they wouldn't say it to Kyle Larson's face. They're thinking that Kyle Larson's going to crash the car. You do realize how talented Kyle is. You might think he's overrated. Kyle Larson could drive circles around you.
Did he crash that little car that's got the pointed nose? Nope. Did he put that car in the Fast Six? Yep.
He's a pretty talented kid.
I think he can grasp an F1 car pretty quick.
He's a pretty talented kid. Plus, if it is going to be indeed a ride swap with Oscar Piastri, any tips that he's going to need, Oscar's right there. Boom. Covered. Then there's the head-scratching move. We have talked about Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon is a guy who, well, he's kind of trading on his last name. I'll just be real honest with you. And his familial relationships, in case you didn't know, he's the grandson of Richard Childress. Ty Dillon got himself up into the Cup Series, couldn't win a race. Got busted down to the Truck Series this year. Now he's back in the Cup Series.
Couldn't win a race, or couldn't even make the playoffs with a team that made the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So what happens?
He gets that Cup Series ride.
An 18-year-old kid that has got collectively that many Truck Series starts, has that many ARCA Series starts. What does he do at Kansas? Finishes top 5.
Yeah. Something Ty Dillon couldn't do all year long.
So that is another check mark in my little question, my little phrase that I have. Situations will let you know real quick. Is it the driver or is it the vehicle?
Yeah.
This situation, just a man holding the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm. But yet somehow he's back in the Cup Series next year, joining Cowlick Racing. They have booted Daniel Hemrick out of the 31. They're changing the 31 to the number 10, which they grabbed from Stewart-Haas Racing, and they're putting Ty Dillon in the car. Why? Who twisted Matt Cowlick's arm on this?
Well, considering that the campus of Cowlick Racing is on the campus of RCR, yeah. Kind of see where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm. He probably got pulled into it because so he could keep his technical alliance. Well, buddy, you've performed better with your technical alliance with Trackhouse than you have with RCR.
Indeed. I don't know why this move was made. It doesn't make any sense in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. Can't figure it out. It's totally baffling. And whatever we saw out of the 31 car this year, I expect it to be less in 2025.
Yeah.
I'm putting it nicely.
That's an understatement. But it's hard for me to put this on because I don't know which level of a scenario this is equal to. Is this equal to a Danica Patrick style scenario?
Well, that would make the number 10 fairly appropriate.
Yeah. No doubt. Does this equal a, let's see, who's another one? It's that one right there because it's somebody.
It might be the best one, yeah, truth be told.
Somebody that's taking the seat of a Cup car to where somebody that is in the, let's say, Xfinity probably deserves the car more than he does. Mm-hmm. That wins races.
I will say this for Ty Dillon. This will be the best car he's had. All due respect to Germain Racing, all due respect to Rackley War, which, yeah, they won races with Matt DiBenedetto in the truck last year and made the playoffs in the truck series. But, yeah, this will be by far, I think, the best racer he has had in the top levels of NASCAR.
Overall, yeah.
And I still don't think he's going to do much of anything with it. I have no faith in it at all.
Can't remember which line of that movie where they said, "Don't screw it up."
We'll
or
see.
that's the nice way to put it. The line was a different wording.
Yeah.
Don't screw it up.
Basically.
You know.
And then somewhat better news in the fact that the early part of this year was buoyed by, especially for NASCAR fans, the ability to go onto Netflix and have a series that was somewhat akin to F1 Drive to Survive. They called it NASCAR Full Speed. And thankfully, they got to talking about it because they understood that there were people that were driven from watching that series on Netflix to then going and deciding, hey, I'm going to go check this out on Netflix. And now that I've checked that out on Netflix, I'm going to go check out a race. Whether or not it was in person or whether or not it was on television didn't matter.
Season 1, Episode 3. Look hard, we're in it.
Yeah. They did a nice shot of the press box up at Talladega and caught us. I don't know whether that's going to happen this time around, but it's been greenlit for a season 2.
That they've been recording on already.
Yeah. And they finally got the approval to do it, even though there's some controversy. We'll get to that here in just a second.
I need popcorn and a beer for that one.
Yeah, sit back and relax. But this is a very, very good idea. For the United States of America, we'll go back to the F1 Drive to Survive series. It has really gotten the people in the United States to understand a little bit more about this series that never was really able to gain a foothold here in the country. And now they are fighting with Indycar for second most popular motorsports series, at least by television viewership, because the Cup Series is the king of the hill. Okay? NASCAR understood this, and they also began to understand that what we have been doing when it came to our entertainment deals, nobody's taking us seriously with that. So why don't we try and do something akin to it? And that's where they came up with the NASCAR Full Speed, which, do we have that logo there, Carrie, somewhere? They finally decided, yeah, we need to do something to where people will take it a little bit more serious. So they came up with this documentary, and was it a complete one? No. F1 Drive to Survive covered the whole season over 10 episodes and concentrated each different episode on each of the 10 major teams in F1. In this case, it was 6 episodes, and it really concentrated on the playoff drivers, and that's really what it's going to do again. Mm-hmm. Still, better than what we had seen in the past when somebody tried to make NASCAR the kind of, at the very least, the occupation of some of the people that were in it. And you basically got hokey junk. Think lesser Ricky Bobby, if you will.
Yeah, pretty much.
This right here is very, very well done. All the different groups that were doing the production of it the first year, doing it again, which includes a group that is headed by Dale Earnhardt Jr., which means they know what they're doing. They're going to do it right. And NASCAR Productions, you can say a lot about a lot of different levels of NASCAR. NASCAR Productions, they do things well. They do things on a level of NFL films, of Major League Baseball productions. These are very, very well produced things. So if you haven't checked out the first season of NASCAR Full Speed, go ahead and do it. And it did create an uptick in viewership in the early part of this season, and it is pretty much held steady throughout the course of the year. So glad that they finally came up with a season 2. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. We've been keeping up with this charter deal, and we told you right after the whole situation got dealt with that 2 teams decided that they were not going to sign the new charter agreement. Those 2 teams, Front Row Motorsports, FRM, and 2311, not 23 by 1. It's an inside joke. You'll have to catch it. It's getting worse.
Oh, Patrick's never going to live that one down.
It's getting worse. There's a reason why this thing has the headline, "It's Happening." This right here is the wording of a lawsuit that 2311 and Front Row Motorsports have jointly filed against NASCAR. And I'm just going to read this straight out, okay? This is a statement from 2311 and Front Row Motorsports through their attorney. And I don't have his name right offhand. You do.
Jeffrey Kessler.
Thank you. 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports today jointly filed an antitrust lawsuit in the Western District of North Carolina against NASCAR and its CEO, Jim France, arguing that the stock car racing circuit and its leadership have used anti-competitive practices to prevent fair competition in the sport. In the joint statement, the two teams said, quote, "We share a passion for racing, the thrill of competition, and winning. Off the racetrack, we share a belief that change is necessary for the sport that we love. Together, we brought this antitrust case so that racing can thrive, become more competitive, and fair sport in ways that will benefit teams, drivers, sponsors, and most importantly, the fans. NASCAR and the France family operate without transparency, have stifled competition, control the sport of stock car racing in ways that unfairly benefit them at the expense of team owners, drivers, sponsors, partners, and fans through the following anti-competitive practices." And they start to do a list here. Buying a majority of the premier racetracks through an exclusive to NASCAR races. And if you look at who owns which tracks that NASCAR is racing on, it's primarily two ownership groups. One is Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, SMI.
Yep.
That's Marcus Smith. Bruton Smith started it. Marcus Smith is now in charge of it. That's Atlanta, Charlotte, Bristol, Las Vegas, Texas, such and such. Then there used to be International Speedway Corporation. That got dissolved when NASCAR bought everything out and brought it under their fold. They were always kind of a subsidiary of NASCAR anyway. Now it's officially under the NASCAR fold. They own tracks like Daytona, Talladega, Phoenix, Martinsville, Darlington, so on. So I see where they're coming from on that. The Speedway, the SMI ownership might be where this one would have a bit of a problem, though.
Probably so, yep.
Second argument, imposing exclusivity deals on NASCAR-sanctioned racetracks. That's a much deeper argument. Exclusivity deals probably also has to do with partnership situations. So, for example, if you have ABC company that is sponsoring a race at, we'll just say Talladega since it's this weekend, then you're not going to be able to have a competitor to ABC company come in as a major sponsor. Okay. Acquiring the Automobile Racing Club of America, ARCA, the only notable stock car racing series competitor. I get that, but at the same time, ARCA was never on a level. It was never supposed to be on the level of the Cup Series or even Xfinity.
It wasn't. But if you look at it, when they took ARCA over and bought ARCA, ARCA actually fell off.
It did.
ARCA fell off. You really only got two teams, three at the most, that are even competitive on any given week. The other ones are going 5 laps down by lap 3. Unfortunately, there's no cost. There's no ARCA. In a way, ARCA's gotten worse. Let's just say it that way. ARCA's gotten a lot worse. So,
I'm not so sure this particular argument holds water.
I'm not sure about that one either, but there's a lot of things that I've been keeping my eye on Twitter. That's what I still call it. Of things the things talking that Jeffrey Kessler in the press conferences have been talking about, and things have been coming out, and it makes you go,
"Yeah,
really?
What?
Huh?"
More scratching our heads, kind of like the Ty Dillon to Calic Racing.
For an example, at Atlanta, when it was being signed, basically being forced to be signed. This is per Kelly Crandall, and she's at Racer.com. NASCAR gave the final 112-page draft of the new charters to the teams at 5 p.m. on September the 6th and told them they had 1 hour to review it and sign it, or their charters would be pulled. They later changed it to midnight, so extending it to a whole 7 hours. So you basically had to read.
That's a lot of legalese to read in 7 hours.
A lot of legalese to read in 7 hours. Okay. What else? There is so much.
Yeah. It's kind of a mess. Just to be real honest with you, this is kind of a mess. Some of the other points they talk about: preventing teams from participating in any other stock car races while also retaining ownership over next-gen parts and cars.
Okay, all right. Here's why I've got a catastrophic problem with this.
Yeah.
Rights to own the cars and the next-gen stuff. Okay, you had a perfectly good car in the Gen 6 car. Perfectly good car. Then you basically throw out a kit car, and it's nothing but a kit car because the clips, the front and rear clips, are bolted on. And when you have a bolted on clip, that means no give in the chassis, which has essentially ended the career of Kurt Busch. Okay? And injured quite a few other ones.
And this, by the way, does bring up the next particular portion of this, which is forcing teams to buy their parts from single source suppliers chosen by NASCAR.
That is a monopoly.
That goes back to the kit car part. That's got teeth. That part's got teeth.
That's got a lot of teeth.
Let's see, what else do they say here in this statement? Quote, no other major professional sport in North America is run by a single family that enriches themselves through these kinds of unchecked monopolistic practices. Central to the lawsuit are the original NASCAR charters adopted in 2016, the recently updated 2025 agreements, which 2311 and Front Row Motorsports did not sign because of the unfair terms. After more than 2 years of attempted negotiations over the agreements, during which NASCAR continually stonewalled and refused to engage constructively, we concluded that litigation was the only way to address the anti-competitive practices of NASCAR and the France family. In the coming days, this final paragraph is very interesting. In the final days, we will file a preliminary injunction to enable our teams to race in the next calendar year under the 2025 charter agreement. Without the charters, it is true, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports could have been excluded should NASCAR want to throw their arm strength around, so to speak. But they want to continue to do that while pursuing the antitrust litigation. The statement continues, the filing will seek discovery from both NASCAR and Jim France related to their exclusionary practices and intend to insulate themselves from any competition. 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports will seek treble damages for the anti-competitive terms that the teams have been subject to under the 2016 charter agreement. It isn't known exactly what that will take the form of as far as money is concerned, how much money it'll cost. I do know that one of the central things that Denny Hamlin, specifically the partner of Michael Jordan here, was looking for was to have permanent ownership of the charters.
Which makes sense.
It does to a certain extent, but I understand why NASCAR didn't do it. Heck, we just talked about the Indycar charter that they agreed to. The teams don't own the charters there either. Basically, you have control over the charter because you were granted it at the beginning, and you can sell it or lease it for a year if you choose to, but NASCAR technically owns those charters, which means they can pull them at any time. I can see both sides of it. I mean, yeah, you would like to, considering the fact that a minimum $20 million is changing hands to be able to buy a charter. That's about what we heard Front Row Motorsports paid Stewart-Haas Racing for their third charter. We have heard as much as $40 million.
Spire.
Which is what we heard Spire paid for the Live Fast Motorsports charter last year. That's a hefty, hefty amount to put out there for something that you technically don't own. So I get where Denny Hamlin's coming from, but I'm not so certain that they're ever going to get that part of it. But the other problems that they have, some of which are listed, that we listed here for you, some of that's got some teeth here. This is going to be a fascinating thing to watch. And then there's a little bit of a follow-up this morning on that.
And they, touching on Jeffrey Kessler, This is a statement straight from The Athletic. 2311 and Front Row have retained attorney Jeffrey Kessler, whose legal victories include the creation of NFL free agency, the implementation of name, image, and likeness deals in college athletics.
You say what you want about that.
And winning equal pay for the United States women's national soccer team. Kessler told The Athletic every major sport goes through a transformation, usually by the application of the antitrust laws and sometimes other major transformative event. And this lawsuit, he said, quote, is NASCAR's moment. I'm trying to find, and somebody made a statement that I seen that, here it goes. NASCAR has never faced an owner that has as much power, and this is their words, as much power and notoriety as Michael Jordan.
No, they haven't.
Not even close.
Think about the name recognition that man brings to it. This guy right here is Bob Jenkins. He's the owner of Front Row Motorsports, in case you were curious about that.
That's Elton Sawyer.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's
I'm sorry. I did not look at that picture carefully enough. I thought it was Bob Jenkins.
Another thing Kessler said too, with the monetary stuff. Kessler said, based off the charter agreement that he's read, the teams are only getting a 13% share of the revenue pie.
No wonder they were asking for more money before they signed this particular deal in the negotiations.
And the drivers are only getting 3% of the revenue. That totals $3 billion. He says it's a vast difference from the NBA, where the players get 49% of the revenue.
And that's fairly typical across the board for Major League Baseball and the NFL as well.
Now,
just to let you know.
Last I checked, out of Major League Baseball, NASCAR, NBA, and the NFL, let's use those four. The only one of those major sports that has unfortunately had a accident happen to where someone perishes in competition is NASCAR.
Yeah. I mean, we know about Damar Hamlin last year, the Buffalo Bills defensive back who basically got hit right in the chest, had a heart attack on the field. Guess who's back playing this year? Damar Hamlin.
And he's made an interception and made a really good play the other day in the game.
Yeah. And Major League Baseball has been all about trying to do their level best to keep the safety of the batters as preeminent as possible, and therefore they're allowing more of the head protection for the batters, because every once in a while, either whether it's intentional or whether the ball gets away from the pitcher, if you throw a fastball that happens to go at somebody's head, you're talking about 95, 100 miles per hour, sometimes more, depending on the pitcher. And yes, in the past, go back to the 1920s, a player got killed when he got beamed in the head by a fastball. It could certainly happen nowadays, and they're doing a lot more for the protection of that, and they're trying to hold off on that by warning not only the pitcher, but both benches if they feel like the pitcher did it intentionally. The NBA obviously is doing everything that it can for the safety, but you're still it's a lot of wear and tear on somebody when you're talking about playing on a hardwood court. Because you go running up and down that court, it'll play havoc on your knees, it'll play havoc on your back. Ask Michael Jordan about it. Ask Larry Bird about it. Ask Magic Johnson about it. You know, some of the big ones. They'll tell you it's not the easiest sport to play. We could talk about the NHL, but, you know, when you look at the grand scheme of things, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, football's king here in the United States of America when it comes to the sports market. The NFL rules. Highest ratings, just generic run-of-the-mill weekly game. Not talking about the Super Bowl, not talking about the playoffs. Just a regular season game. Every single time, National Football League wins the ratings battle. Generally, in second place, you're going to find college football. We love our football here in the United States. What's third? It's not the NHL. It's not the NBA. It's not Major League Baseball. It's the Cup Series. NASCAR gets between 3 and 4 million people as a general rule for any given race throughout the course of a season. Then you got to drop down to the $1.5 to $2 million people viewership range for a Major League Baseball game or an NBA game. NHL drops down more to like 1 million. And that's where they get beat by IndyCar and Formula One, who are pretty much averaging about 1.5 million. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of eyes on NASCAR. Third most popular sport right now in the United States when it comes to television. There's a lot of eyeballs. And you don't think that this right here is going to get a whole lot of press this weekend? Oh, it's going to.
Talladega just turned into
as the good year turns.
Well, as the good year turns, or if we see Judge Joe Brown in the infield, we know there's supposed to be a judge match going on.
Yeah, exactly.
But some of these things are coming in so rapid fire. I want to go through a series of tweets that was put out by Toby Christie from the press conference that Jeffrey Kessler's quotes here. Attorney Jeffrey Kessler says, of all the sports leagues he's taken on from an antitrust standpoint, none has been more egregious than what he has seen within NASCAR. Kessler, I don't need to answer that. Kessler says that NASCAR has engaged in illegal monopolistic behavior by buying out competitors and racetracks that challenge the sanctioning body. And it continued with the next-gen car, which has hamstrung teams into buying cars from NASCAR and their vendors. You touched on that just a minute ago.
Yes, we did.
Kessler says the final straw was NASCAR putting pressure on the teams to sign the deal by a certain date and time or lose their charters. Kessler says that NASCAR will have to adopt to the modern times and change, or have the courts do it for them. All right. Kessler's quote: "We plan to win this case, and one way or another, stock car racing will be better." Kessler says, we know what we know from what has been made public, but we'll learn a lot more through discovery. Says he looks forward to looking at NASCAR's books and chasing the money.
This is being done, as we noted, in the Western District Courts of North Carolina. NASCAR may have been founded in Florida, but for all intents and purposes, its home base is in and around Charlotte, North Carolina. The vast, overwhelming majority of the teams are based in and around the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And NASCAR has, let's face it, they haven't moved their headquarters there. Their headquarters are still in Daytona Beach, but they got a fairly sizable office complex that they have in Charlotte. And they've got the media center there that NASCAR paid for and built, which includes TV and radio studios.
That we learned at Nashville some of it holds, and we're like, huh?
Yeah, we were kind of curious about that. But either way, they have a very large presence in there. This is going to be real interesting because who has the bigger pull? Economically, the teams have a very big economic pull, but they're under the NASCAR umbrella, which means NASCAR's got a big economic pull.
But
this is going to be interesting.
From a human pull?
Ooh.
From a human pull.
The teams have more power.
I don't think I would want to go head-to-head with that man and Curtis Polk.
And I will say this, and I do find this timing relatively interesting, because we're also, just a couple of stories ago when we were talking about Ty Dillon, the fact that they're going to use the number 10, which they're going to get from Stewart-Haas Racing. Remember, Stewart-Haas Racing goes away at the end of the year, and it changes over to the Haas factory team because Tony Stewart is divesting himself from everything when it comes to NASCAR. If he had been told that this, with Michael Jordan, might have been in the offing, I wonder, I'm not convinced of it, but I do wonder if Tony Stewart might have said, you know what, I might be willing to stick around and see this through just to see what might happen.
Yeah. Couple things that I'll lean with on this. One, there's a part of that suit that was filed that 2311 has submitted their paperwork to purchase a third charter that NASCAR has not approved yet.
Yeah.
That's one. Two, what a lot of people don't realize about the numbers of cars, they are not owned by teams.
That's also true.
They are owned by the series. You lease a number. You don't buy a number. You're not owner of a number. you lease a number. Mm-hmm. Reason I know that is because certain Truck Series competitor, I recall the process of when they stepped up of what they had to do to get a number. Because a number that he had in the series that he was in was not available, so he had to do something. That was the next best available number that was similar to what he was running. And it don't take a rocket scientist to figure out who I'm talking about.
Sure.
All right. That's how that process worked. They applied to lease the number, not buy the number. That's secondly. And the third thing that Jeffrey Kessler has made it very crystal clear regarding those two teams in the upcoming races through the end of the season. If those teams are so much as scrutinized by the least little bit in the technical inspection bay or officiated differently through the race, that's only going to pour gas onto this fire.
Yes, it will. You got a lot of eyeballs on you now and some white-hot spotlights. This is going to be interesting. It probably will not go to court, probably not until next year. I just don't see this being fast-tracked like that because this is too big. There's a whole lot of discovery yet to come and a whole lot of paperwork that's got to be sent to the judges and the lawyers that are on both sides of this. So, no, I don't expect this to really hit the light of day until 2025. But at some point in time, with this new charter coming into play in 2025, to a certain extent, they're going to have to at least start on this. I would think, even if it doesn't get completed, they're going to have to at least try and get it started sometime before 2025 season begins.
With who they've got, who 2311 and Front Row have in Kessler, I wouldn't be surprised if it's rolling Monday morning after Phoenix. Honestly.
I would be pleasantly surprised, but I would be surprised if that happened. I'd like to see it because I think this needs to be taken care of and it needs to be taken care of quickly. But we all know about the court systems here in the United States of America. I can't speak to the Western District of North Carolina, but if they're anything like the rest of the U.S., it's going to be a slog. And this is going to be interesting to watch. And I would imagine there'll be a lot of coverage of it this weekend when we get to Talladega, whether it's CW, Fox Sports 1, or is it NBC or USA?
NBC.
NBC's
taking it to the house.
So this ought to be good, folks. This ought to be good.
Now to a much more positive note.
Yes, as we noted, we're going to Talladega Superspeedway.
Ladies and gentlemen, the big house is open.
That's right. Yellowwood 500 weekend is what we call it, but it is a triple header. Friday, we've got the Craftsman Truck Series race, Saturday, Xfinity Series, and then Sunday, Cup Series out there. All of them playoff races. And where do we want to start?
For the proverbial life of me, I still cannot figure out who made this genius decision to put the Truck Series on Friday afternoon.
They did move it up an hour. Yay.
I thought it was 30 minutes they moved it up. But
I heard an hour.
But
either
way, they moved it up.
Yeah, they did. Which they needed to.
But they cut the mileage down by a whole 25 miles.
I know.
A whole 25 miles.
They just wanted to make sure we weren't going to be racing after dark, which we've done that. We've done that. We've seen it.
That's a whole 10 laps.
I know.
2000, I saw cars qualifying on the track in the dark. Running by the light of the stands on the front stretch, which lights the front stretch up fantastically, if you ask me.
Yeah, it does a pretty good job. Backstretch?
Yeah, that's questionable. But I'd say Truck Series, start at 1 to 3.
Let's go for it here. All right, so these drivers are down into the round of 8. And we need to figure out who's going where. Now, we've got the top of the level here. They're in pretty good shape. Your Christian Eckes, for example.
Yeah.
Where we're looking is, for example, Alabama's own Grant Enfinger, who is right on the bottom of the line right there. That's a man who needs some help. And he's not bad at Talladega. We've seen him before.
Yeah, he's got a victory there.
So...
Which whoever did the entry list for this week is an absolute genius.
Yeah, I did notice that as well. I'm sorry I didn't get a screenshot of it. Grant Enfinger's coming in an Oldsmobile pickup.
Yeah,
Huh?
they put Oldsmobile on the entry list. I'm going, huh?
Last time we saw an Oldsmobile pickup was in the intro to the Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. But something's just telling me, and we've seen this trend a lot at this track. Something's telling me we're going to see a first-time winner this weekend. Again.
Would not be unusual. Talladega is well known for having first-time winners. To get their first win in whatever level, ARCA, Trucks, Xfinity, Cup, we're known for it at Talladega. Spoiler, outside of the playoffs. You think that?
I do believe so, yep.
Okay.
It's going to be...
Talk about throwing a monkey wrench into things.
Yeah, no kidding. It'll probably... I've got a feeling it's going to be somebody that you wouldn't expect. Because there's going to be... Because, whether you like to want to say it or not, I'm going to say it. You're going to be racing darkness.
Yes.
You know that Truck Series, they get so aggressive that nobody will drive with their head screwed on.
Yep.
Never happens.
And those drivers that are below the cut line, in other words, they're not in the top four, there's a sense of urgency there because this is a wild card enough.
They're going to be hammered down.
Yep.
Then you're going to have somebody that's riding, managing themselves, slip right up through there, and then boom, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see it easily.
So I got a feeling it's going to be somebody that's unexpected.
Okay. From there, let's go to the Xfinity Series Saturday afternoon.
This one was cut down by a whole 50 miles. Why are we cutting the distance of the races down?
Why are we scheduling it so late that you have to?
The Xfinity race is actually at a decent time that they can complete all 300 miles.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I get the funny feeling, and I hate to say this, but I do. I get the funny feeling this is NBC strong-arming them. Because, again, they've decided, like you said, rest of the races going on to the NBC network. Well, guess what NBC has on the rights to on Saturdays right now as well? They are the home of Notre Dame football.
And Big Ten.
Adding the Big Ten as well. That means they know where their money is. They want the viewership of the football, so they're strong-arming, I would bet, NASCAR into saying, hey, can we shorten the race a little bit? Just fit it into this little window here, can we?
With Xfinity being on CW, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
None.
Well,
None.
CW does have the rights to the ACC.
But they do the ACC good old-fashioned Jefferson Pilot kickoff time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's no excuse on that one.
I don't see why we are messing with that. I really don't.
Don't get it.
It doesn't make sense. But NBC, by the way, just to let you know, through the end of this year, they are the ones in charge of the CW production. So while it's on the CW, NBC is the one producing it all out. Okay? What do you see here when it comes to this?
Oh, boy.
I mean, Xfinity is... This one's maybe the biggest wild card of them all. Because I could see any number of drivers being able to walk away with this. Either in the playoffs or out of the playoffs.
As much of me that wants to say this is probably going to be another Austin Hill show or Jesse Love.
And that wouldn't surprise us because Richard Childress Racing is usually very good at super speedways.
My eyes, for some reason, are squarely on the 39 car.
Ooh.
Why, I don't know.
Going to Ryan Sieg.
Because Ryan Sieg is so sneaky at super speedways, and he's always up there.
He is.
Why do I just have this feeling, Ryan Sieg? I don't know why. I just do.
And Fords generally are quite good at super speedways. And considering that they've got an alliance at Ryan Sieg with Stewart-Haas Racing, who has two very good rocket ships in the Xfinity Series driven by Cole Custer and Riley Herbst, I could see them working together. Them working together.
For sure.
Would not surprise me at all. That would be fun. That'll bring us to Sunday in the Cup Series, and I'm gonna lead off on who I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And it's not just because I'm a fan, but I've been saying this since the beginning of the playoffs. When Chase Briscoe got into the playoffs, all three other drivers within Stewart-Haas Racing and effectively all three other teams said, yeah, we're all getting behind the 14 team, to the point where they looked at the best crew members in the Stewart-Haas Racing stable and figured it was the team that was right now pitting the number 4 car for Josh Berry. They've swapped the 14 and 4 pit crews, and all the drivers are saying, yes, we're going to do everything we can to get Chase Briscoe as far as we can. It was I can't remember, it was 2017 or 2018 when we saw all 4 Stewart-Haas Racing drivers team up and drive away from the field on a regular basis.
It was 19, yep.
I wouldn't be terrifically shocked if these 4 drivers try to figure out a way to do that again. That's what I'm going to be watching. Do I think it'll be successful? That's another story because these cars are vastly different than the cars we saw in 2019.
No, it can be successful.
And I'm going to give you a point. But will it be?
I'm going to give you a point of reference here from the spring race that I very, 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 very clearly remember. Chase Briscoe got separated from the pack. I don't know if he had a penalty or if he had to make a pit stop or something. He got separated from the pack, and then we had this half throttle running garbage.
Yeah.
That was, I'm going, wait a minute. Something ain't right here.
Yeah.
So I pull out and I'm like, let's just look at take a stopwatch and look on the phone. And they're running laps as slow as or slower than what the Truck Series pole lap was. Mm-hmm. Which was like 177.
The big, tall bricks that the trucks are when it comes to their aerodynamic profile.
In a pack. So I went, wait a minute.
Yeah, what are we doing?
What are we doing here?
You start looking at telemetry, they're doing half throttle.
So I'm looking at, I'm like, let's just put Briscoe on the clock here. Chase Briscoe by himself was 2 seconds quicker.
All by himself.
2. So.
All by himself.
I could see Stewart-Haas cars linking up and pushing Briscoe, being in that 4-car train, and they just say, screw it.
Yeah.
We're going to run flat out and do the same thing. Yep. I could see it happening.
Absolutely.
Because we all know, like you just said a minute ago, anytime Ford and Xfinity or Cup, because you can't count trucks because the trucks got more motors and they're all the same spec motors. You can't count them. Anytime Ford unloads at a super speedway,
you got to watch them.
They are loaded for bear.
Yeah. Think about the last several winners at Talladega when it comes to that. And Ryan Blaney is the leader of the pack. What does he drive? Ford. Think about it. That's who I'm going to be watching very carefully. Again, do I know whether it'll be successful or not? No, I don't. But that's the storyline I'm going to be watching because I want to see whether or not they try to do the same thing that they did in 2019.
It's in the things the couple that I'll be keeping my eye on is I personally think in Cup, you're going to have, this is probably going to be a weekend of first-time winners again.
Would not surprise me.
Because Cup Series, just like the 39 car, I don't know why, but I've got my eyes squarely on the 38. He's been
Todd Gilliland.
And front row has been the class of the field with speed at super speedways this year.
Have been good. And wouldn't that be the ultimate thumb into the eye of NASCAR?
No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They've been the class of the field for sheer speed. But McDowell, he's got that inability to close them out. He's there. Something happens.
Yeah.
If it's not Gilliland, there's another one that I've got my eyes squarely on to yank out his first super speedway win after he had somewhat of a debacle at Kansas. He's a Hendrick Motorsports driver. 5-ball corner pocket.
Hard to believe we would actually kind of think that Kyle Larson might be something of an underdog, but he's right. Doesn't have a win at a super speedway. I've got a sinking
feeling about those two cars.
Okay.
First time super speedway winner or first time winner overall.
Should be fun to watch.
It's going to be one of the two.
Yep. Tickets are available, by the way, for Friday and Saturday. I think a few tickets for Sunday. Infield probably sold out.
That always sells out.
Yeah, but I think you can still get some grandstand tickets. You can get some pretty good deals on those as well. So go on to Talladega's website or call them 877-GO, the number 2, Dega, D-E-G-A. We hope to see you this weekend out at the big track. We're not going to have the big show this weekend because the schedule will not allow us to do it. I've got to be up in the PA tower. For those of you that don't know, I am one of the track PA announcers. I am the primary PA tower announcer for Talladega Superspeedway, and Matt Coulter is our primary trackside announcer. And we have to be in our stations ready to go Saturday morning at 8 a.m., which is when our show would normally start. So,
Yep.
we are preempted by Talladega this weekend, but don't worry.
I'll be on the grounds in more than one place or another.
There you go. And we will be back next week, same time, same podcast channel, for another edition of Crossed Flags. Hope you join us then. And until then, enjoy the racing and hope to see you at Talladega.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.